first thing that you are going to want to do is think about your triggers. I'm going to give you your phrases, but you want to also think about your triggers. You're going to want to think about, how does it make you feel when these people are making you upset, right? If you're feeling like they're getting you upset and your breath is quickening and you're getting out of sorts, right? What do you want to do? You want to like stop. You want to pause. All right. So that's the first thing that I'm going to say to you is just pause. And that's actually an acronym that I want you to just have in your at the ready is pause. All right. So just P is the first part of the pause. And so pause and breathe. It's just take a moment to pause and breathe, because that's going to help you when you have that emotional reaction to somebody in that situation. All right, so just take a moment to pause and breathe so that when somebody is coming at you in a toxic situation, and instead of going right at them with anger or something, just go, wait a minute, let me pause and let me just think of it as in a curious situation and just say, wait a minute, I'm curious. I'm curious. Tell me more. All right. So take a pause. And that first magic phrase that you're going to say to them is, I'm curious. I'm curious. Tell me more. Because whenever you can take a pause, instead of reacting with anger, you can react with curiosity. That will help you. I'm going to give you an acronym, which here is pause, but I'm also going to tell you to react with curiosity instead of anger. Take a pause, manage your emotional triggers, and also react with curiosity instead of anger. Pause stands for PAUSE. The first letter is P, and that stands for pause. Pause and breathe. Take a moment to breathe and prevent that impulsive reaction that you might have. And then the A stands for acknowledge. Acknowledge your feelings. Again, you can, instead of anger, you can just like acknowledge your feelings, identify and accept the emotion that you might be experiencing. Because when you're dealing with somebody who's coming at you, they might be toxic, they might be making you feel defensive. Then you can be like, wait a minute, I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to take a step. I'm going to take a breath, because anytime that you can do that, then you don't give them that moment to be baited, right? Because anytime that somebody can bait you, then they are going to have that upper hand. Because whenever you get into that emotional quagmire, then they're going to have that upper hand on you. So anytime that you can react with curiosity instead of anger, then they're no longer going to have that upper hand. So that's why I'm saying to you to take that pause. You is use rational thought. Challenge your immediate thoughts and rely on factual reasoning. So remember, you're going to say to them, I'm curious. Tell me more. I'm curious. Tell me more about what it is that you're thinking. Because if you say something that's going to react in anger, then that person now has the best of you. I always say they go fishing and then they go baiting, and then now you're down in the mud with them. And then S stands for shift. Shift your focus. Shift your focus from your standard responses. Ground yourself into neutral phrases. That's what we're talking about here today. Neutral phrases to manage your interactions, so that you're managing your interactions with them. I'm curious. Tell me more. What is it that you're saying to me? I'm curious. Tell me more. And then E is excuse yourself if needed. Step away momentarily if it's too emotional, if the response is too overwhelming. So the first thing that I'm telling you is take a pause. Take a pause to manage your emotional triggers and use curiosity instead of anger. So anytime that you can respond to somebody with curiosity instead of anger, you're going to be much better served. You're taking that pause. So the very first phrase is, I'm curious, tell me more, because you're using curiosity instead of anger. But I'm also telling you to take that pause, and pause stands for what I just told you that it stands for. Does everybody get it? All right, so take a pause, and I want you to put that in the comments below. Take a pause. I already gave you one magic phrase to respond to anyone in any kind of situation, no matter what it is, so that you have that toxic situation happening. You've got a phrase. But remember, you're taking a step back. You're the one who's now in control. All right. And remember, the E is excuse yourself if needed. You can always excuse yourself if you need to. The next one, phrase number 2, is that's interesting. Why would you say that? Again, it's more like curiosity instead of anger. That's interesting. Why would you say that? You're not reacting with anger. And the other reason why I suggest that you use a phrase like this, especially if you're negotiating with somebody like this, and as an attorney, I tell you this, especially in a negotiation situation, is that you're always wanting to know more about what the other person is thinking. And if you can get it where you can dig into more about what the other person is thinking, then you can actually start to learn more about how you can get the upper hand on them. And I know a lot of times you're sitting there thinking, I don't want to know what they're thinking. I don't want to know anything about them. But the answer is no, that's not true. You always want to know more about what the other side is thinking. You always want to gain more information because information is power. Information is leverage. So you always want to know more psychologically about what the other side is thinking because you can always use that against them. That becomes something that you can use down the road. And especially if you want to make the other side feel like they're being seen, heard, and validated. And when you're dealing with a toxic person always wants to feel seen, heard, and validated. Oh, that's interesting. Why would you say that? That gives you the upper hand once again. And then once again, take a pause. How do you manage your emotional triggers? You take a pause and breathe, acknowledge your feelings, use rational thought, shift your focus to standard responses, excuse yourself if needed. And then, that's interesting. Why would you say that? 2 phrases that you can use so far. I'm curious, tell me more. And then the second one, that's interesting. Why would you say that? The third one, that's interesting feedback. Now, once again, you're like actually telling them, oh, I like your feedback. Thank you. What makes you think that? Especially if the person just put you down. They think that they put you down. Okay, great. That's interesting feedback. What makes you think that? Dig into why do they think that about you? Let them explain. Instead of going, what? Actually let them go into it. Let them tell you their side. Let them give you their arguments. Let them give away their side of the story while you sit there and take notes. Just take a pause. Don't feel the need to defend yourself. I always say never jade, even though I love jade. Never justify, argue, defend, or explain because you're going to take a pause. Use this opportunity to gain information, gain knowledge. You're collecting. So I'm curious. Tell me more. That's interesting. Why would you say that? That's interesting feedback. What makes you think that? You got to take your ego out of this thing. Check your ego at the door. Just do some information gathering over here. You're just pretending like you're reporting the news over here. So that's 3 out of 4 so far. Never give away your leverage, by the way. And you just keep your emotions out of this thing. You're just looking at things factually. And you can't take things personally, especially when you're dealing with somebody who's toxic. Because when you're dealing with somebody who's toxic, you're not dealing with rational. You're not dealing with reasonable. You're never going to get them to see your side. You're never going to get closure. So you might as well just kind of look at it as a game. So the final thing is that's an interesting perspective. Why would you ask that? So I'm curious. Tell me more. That's interesting. Why would you say that? That's an interesting feedback. What makes you think that? That's an interesting perspective. Why would you ask that? And just put it back on them. Don't allow them to let them see you sweat. Don't allow them to make you think that you're upset because you keep hanging around in the conversation upset, not triggered, and not emotional. You might actually gather some information. Now, it's not an easy thing to do, right? So if you're finding yourself triggered, if you're finding yourself upset, if you're finding yourself defensive, or any of those other things, you got to take yourself out of the conversation. You can't continue to be in the conversation. I do recommend phrases for disarming narcissists. If you need them, you can go to disarmthenarc.com and get my phrases for disarming narcissists. I highly recommend those if you need them. If you need them, they work great for emails, texts, all sorts of things. Disarmthenarc.com. They're totally free. And my free private Facebook group is also a great source of support, which you can go to, which is Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. Definitely check that out for sure. That will help you. And so go to my free private Facebook group for support, disarmthenarc.com for free phrases for disarming narcissists. Get the help and support that you need in the areas that you can get them. I'm curious, tell me more. That's interesting. Why would you say that? That's interesting feedback. What makes you think that? That's an interesting perspective. Why would you ask that? So four magic power phrases to respond to anyone in any situation, no matter how toxic, no matter how angry, no matter how they are, but you got to take a pause and you got to make sure you're managing your emotional triggers and you have to make sure that you're responding with curiosity instead of anger.
Today, we are diving into why we overuse the word sorry and how it can actually disempower us, especially in high conflict situations. More importantly, I'm going to share what you can say instead so that you can actually have a substitute so that you can actually get your power back and have a tool so that, in your little arsenal that you will have right there at the ready instead. All right. So saying sorry actually stems from a place, maybe from a good place in some ways. It really is an empathic response a lot of times. A lot of times it stems from not wanting to have conflict, wanting to be the good person, maybe wanting to look like you are, getting along with people. A lot of times it's because you have an empathic nature, an empathetic nature, and you are tuned to the emotions of the other person. You're worried about the other person's feelings and you don't want to hurt the other person. You're immediately going, oh, I'm sorry. You don't want to hurt that other person, right? And so that's a lot of times why you do say sorry. But sometimes it is a trauma response because it could be that you experienced past traumas and you were maybe more frequently made to feel like you were at fault, especially if there was a narcissistic history in your past and gaslighting or emotional manipulation was present. And so you feel like, oh, let me overcome this stress and anxiety by just constantly overly apologizing, right? That could be a response as well. It could be because you were raised in a culture where you were frequently blamed or taught to put other people first. And so you develop a habit of overly apologizing. Sometimes it is a reflection of deeper issues, but regardless of where it comes from, why it happens is still not necessarily a great thing, because when it happens, it can be a situation that it devalues you. It can cause you to not necessarily get the respect and honor that you deserve. And it can disempower you. It can cause people to disrespect you. It can actually cause you to not have the confidence that you might want to have as well. What I want to do here is give you some scenarios where you might automatically say sorry when perhaps you could say something else instead that would still communicate a message that where the other person feels heard and gives them the feeling that they matter, which is what you're trying to communicate anyway, and allows you to not say sorry. So here's one example. One example might be where you're running late. And again, like that is not something that, you would want to be doing normally. Okay. And you do want to, let the other person know that their time is valuable, that you respect them, that you honor them, but you want to shift your language to be something where you're communicating with confidence, with clarity, where you're standing in your authentic power. So you might want to say, instead of sorry, you might want to say, thank you for your patience. This not only acknowledges that other person and acknowledges their time, lets them know that you are being considerate of them. It also keeps you in that position of strength. And another one is if you're in a meeting and you have a differing opinion, instead of saying, sorry, but I see it differently, you can say, I see it differently. Instead of saying sorry, just say, I see it differently, and here's why. This approach opens up a dialogue without diminishing your perspective. Or you can even say, I can see your perspective, but here's why I see it differently. A lot of times you can acknowledge their perspective. I acknowledge your perspective, but I see it differently, and here's why. Because that way you are acknowledging them. I see your perspective. Make sure you don't interrupt, but just, you can say, I'd like to add a point here, something to that effect. That approach acknowledges them. It allows the conversation to continue, but you're not necessarily agreeing, and you're certainly not apologizing. Another way that you can not apologize is declining a request for an invitation. A lot of times you might say, I'm sorry, I can't make it. But sometimes you just don't want to go, or you're just tired, or you don't have the time that you want to give to that. You might want to just say, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the invitation. However, I have a prior commitment. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate you thinking of me. Unfortunately, I am previously engaged. Just thank you for the invitation. You don't have to say, sorry, I can't make it. That response shows appreciation to them, appreciation for the offer, firmly states that you are unavailable. No guilt, no apology, no sorry. Thank you. I appreciate you. Please think of me in the future. You can always say that too. When asking for clarification or help, instead of saying, sorry, can you explain this again? You can say, I would appreciate clarity on this. By phrasing your request this way, you show that you value understanding whatever it is that they're trying to convey to you means something to you. Most people would want that, whatever it is that they're trying to convey to you, if they're trying to convey information to you. You're being proactive in gaining the information or getting the information, whatever it is that they're trying to convey to you. If this is helpful for you so far, I want you to put sorry, not sorry in the comments below. And what has helped you the most so far? Which phrase has helped you the most so far? I would love to know in the comments below. I would love to get a dialogue going for this so far. The next one is when you need more time to complete a task. I really think that this is important because you do need to stay in integrity and keep your word to things. So if you have committed to getting something done by a certain date. You do need to go back to the person and say, I'm not going to be able to get it done when I said I was going to. Don't just not do it, because then you are out of integrity and you haven't kept your word. That's not okay either. Your word should be solid to yourself and to the other person, and it should mean something. But don't say sorry. You might want to say something like this: I'm giving this the attention that it deserves and will have it completed by X date. This way you stay in your power. You always want to phrase things in a way that keeps you standing in your power. How can you phrase something that demonstrates that you're standing in your power? I'm giving this the attention that it deserves, that you deserve. I don't want it to be rushed. I don't want you to have a product that has been rushed. I'm committing to you that it will be completed by Saturday, December, whatever. That demonstrates your commitment to them. It demonstrates your commitment to your word. It demonstrates your commitment to quality. It also acknowledges that there was a deadline on X date. That you're not trying to thwart that particular deadline. You did know that there was one on that day. So I want you to start noticing how often you say sorry and consciously replace it with these empowering alternatives, because it's not just about changing a word. This is about transforming how you view yourself. It's about transforming how you view yourself in relationship to other people as well. I think a lot of times we have heightened sensitivity to others. We want to be perceived as polite. We don't want to be perceived as overly aggressive, especially as women. I'm sure that there's men watching here too, but I think a lot of times we want to be perceived as likable. So we might stick the word sorry in there because we think that it might make us more likable. That's not necessarily true. I just want you to know that that's not necessarily true. And I do have phrases for disarming narcissists for those of you who are dealing with narcissists, and you can get those at disarmthenarc.com. For those of you who are dealing with narcissists or high conflict personalities, you can get those at disarmthenarc.com. So grab those there, disarmthenarc.com, and make sure that when you're talking to people, you have eye contact, you're looking forward, you're looking straight, you speak clearly at a moderate pace, you use confident language. Don't use language that is sort of like maybe, or if you want to, or you don't have to, or just like be really confident in how you speak. You want to appear powerful. You have to be authentic. And you want to stand in your power and stay positive, believing in your abilities, believing in your self-worth. That naturally enhances your authority as well. How you appear to others, that really helps as well. Fed up with narcissists walking all over you? Sick of everyone believing their lies while you're paying through the nose in attorney's fees? What if you could hold all the cards for a change? Hey, I'm Rebecca Zung. I'm a top 1% trial attorney, a USA Today bestselling author, and I've spent my entire career helping people slay narcissists in negotiations, most recently through my proven slay method. What if your suffering could become your superpower? Imagine turning all that pain into power, not just for you, but for others too. This is your chance to take back control. You can finally win. Become a high conflict negotiation certified coach. Help others while transforming your own life, and do good for the world. This is your chance. Go to RebeccaZung.com/apply, and I'll show you how to turn the tables for good starting today. I still have fear at times, and it's really, really hard. And so I want to talk today about how you turn your fear into power. How do you have that unshakable confidence? I know a lot of people feel like, oh my God, you must be confident all the time. I've done lots and lots of trials. I teach people how to negotiate with narcissists, right? Does that mean I'm never afraid? No, I still get triggered. I still have those times when I'm walking into meetings or I'm walking into situations and I go, oh my God, how do I handle this situation? Right? I still have those times where feeling intimidated. How do you handle that? Well, first of all, I want you to know that by the end of this, you will have tools. And if you are new here, you haven't subscribed to this channel, I invite you to do so because every single day I'm helping you have tools, have resources so that you can feel like you have a voice. And I know sometimes you feel like you don't. Sometimes you feel so afraid. And especially when you're dealing with toxic people, they can trigger you. They go right for that jugular, they go right for your Achilles heel. They know where to go. They do. And your breathing starts to take over and your amygdala is shaking and you're like, oh my God, because they know where to go. The first thing I want you to do is start to realize what are your triggers? What is it that is triggering you? And just start to notice when you are feeling a certain way. I think if you can start to stop and see what it is that triggers you, and I say stop, swap, and soar. Okay. Because that first stop where you can go, let me pause, let me not react and not act impulsively and just be in a breathing state for a moment, just even a moment, and notice that you are being triggered. It really helps in realizing that a lot of times it's just a thought. Your thoughts are just energy, they're just beams of neurons that are going on in your brain. They're not necessarily real. It's just a thing that happens to you. If you can stop for a moment and regain your composure, it gives you a second to realize, you know what? I can put an invisible shield and that invisible boundary down around you so that you can start to see that other person as if you are observing them, as if you're observing like a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. And then you can put this boundary down around you and say, you know what? I'm a person who deserves respect. You can put like that Teflon down around you and start to have a shield and demand that you're spoken to with respect and have that mindfulness, have that composure. Just pause. That's your first thing. Reflect. Then you can start to go, you know what? I can see that you're upset. I can see that you're angry. I can see that maybe we need to take this and speak later when you're calmed down. And then for yourself, you can reflect on the things that make you angry, the things that cause you to be defensive. I know for me, if somebody speaks to me in a way that is condescending, that to me is a trigger. And I get defensive on that. And that's a common theme for me. And I immediately, want to be triggered by that. And so for me, I have to stop myself and go, I'm not going to react because I can do things or I can say things that might cause me to do things that I might regret. So I have to stop and I have to go, you know what? What causes me to have those emotions? The best skill that a human can have is control of their emotions. Start to journal, write about your experiences, write about your feelings. Over time, if you can reveal your patterns, you can reveal your triggers, it'll really help you because then you can start to notice them. What are the physical sensations that you have when you start to feel triggered? What are the physical signs that are your emotions? Do you get a racing heart? Do you have tightening in your chest? Do you have a knot in your stomach? And then start to engage in that and be more attuned to your bodily responses. And then when you start to feel those signals coming on, you can go, you know what? I'm going to take myself out of this right now. I'm not going to allow myself. You can start to observe not absorb. Invisible boundary comes down. Excuse me, I'm going to remove myself from this situation right now. Learn to notice those external cues when you're feeling disrespected, when you're feeling unheard, misunderstood. Excuse me, I see that you're upset. You can take that pause. You can identify those emotions. You can acknowledge your feelings. You can take that moment to use that rational thought. I say take a pause, right? Pause and breathe, acknowledge your thoughts, use rational thought, shift your focus, and then excuse yourself if needed. Pause. Then you can take the time to reflect. So that's stopping. The next thing is to swap. The swapping is to now you can shift into being more powerful, turning your fear into power. What can you do instead? You can make a plan. You can say, next time we talk, we're going to have an agenda. We're going to have a scope. We're going to have a time limit. I call it making a plan, Stan. When you go to talk to them, you're going to have an agenda. You're going to have a time limit. You're going to say, we have to stick to this time limit. We're going to have to stick to this agenda. And that's it. You want to go beyond this scope? Sorry, buddy. We're not talking about that today. When it hits the time limit, I would love to talk to you more, but sorry, gotta go. Make sure they know about the scope in advance. Make sure they know about the time limit in advance. And then the next thing is never jade. Even though I love jade, love it, but I don't love never jade. Never justify, argue, defend, or explain, right? Never justify, argue, defend, or explain. When you're having a conversation with them, instead of using anger, use curiosity. Tell me more about that. Why would you say that? That's interesting. Instead of anger, use curiosity. So that's how you respond. Observational phrases like you're reporting the news. You're never justifying, you're never arguing, you're never explaining. You are just reporting the news, just the facts. If this is helpful so far, I want to hear a yes. I want to see yes in the comments below. Helpful? What has helped you so much so far? Give me some feedback in the comments below on this video, and I want to get some conversation going. What has given you the most fear? What gives you the most fear when you go to have conversations with difficult people, or people who are toxic, people who are intimidating you? I want to know. When you comment on this video, it actually helps other people too. When we share, when we're vulnerable, when we talk about this, it actually develops a community here, and we actually help each other. We empower each other. We inspire each other. We lift each other up. Comment below what has helped you, or what phrases have helped you so far that I've given you. All right. Another one is a non-confrontational phrase, like just, that's an interesting perspective, something like that. Or thank you, I'll consider it. I agree that that's your perspective. Interesting feedback. Just say anything like that. Non-confrontational phrases. The next thing is the what's so principle. You know what that is? You keep your focus on what is so instead of the what if. What's so instead of what if. The facts. Keep yourself focused on what is actually happening. A lot of times, the what so principle is so much better. How good have you been? How amazing you've been? What you've accomplished? The things that are going on in your case. Rely on factual reasoning, or the things that are really going on in your world. And if you're going to go off in the what if, by the way, how about what ifing yourself into great things? Because you're going to what if yourself into an amazing future, because your thoughts create your reality. Or take a time out. The other thing I do with fear, by the way, is I like to have a conversation with fear. I get to say, hey, fear, we're going on a ride. We're going to do this thing and it's going to be kind of scary. I get that you're going to come along, but you got to sit in the back seat and you got to keep your mouth shut. And you definitely do not get to touch the radio, and you definitely do not get to touch the steering wheel. It's another great way to turn your fear into power and unshakable confidence in any conversation. The last way is to soar. Now you're ready to soar. Now you're ready to rise above any conversation. You get to stop, you get to assess and swap that conflict for cooperation. You are positioned to soar and become your authentic self and stand in your true power. Now you're ready. You overcome those self limiting beliefs by starting to identify yourself as someone who is powerful. Set a new floor for yourself. Instead of saying, I'm shy, say, I'm a person who's powerful. I'm a person who is assertive. Use I statements. I respectfully disagree. Visualize your success. Visualize yourself doing powerful things. And whatever you visualize yourself doing, visualize it the next level up. Your reticular activating system is looking for evidence in reality for whatever it is that you think you are. So look for evidence in reality of good things. Journal your future self. Journal who you are in the future. Write a letter to yourself 6 months from now of all the things that you've accomplished. It's a powerful exercise. Stand in 6 months from now and go, wow, I've done all these amazing things. It's a fantastic exercise. Let's dive in. These phrases are not just words, they are tools of empowerment for you, specially crafted to help you reclaim your voice so that in the face of manipulation and control, you've got something to do, something to say. And I know that they work. You know why I know? Because I've been recognized as one of the top attorneys in the country. And I've got a USA Today best-selling book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win. And I've got millions and millions of views on this channel. So if you're new here and you haven't subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting for? Make sure that you subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any future videos. So number one is I respectfully disagree. When a narcissist tries to belittle you, tries to belittle your opinion, calmly state, I respectfully disagree. It asserts your stance without escalating conflict. So what you want to do is you want to be able to have that invisible Teflon boundary that comes down around you so that you can start to look at them as if they are a little toddler having a tantrum on the floor, and that you can step back. I say stop, swap, and soar, right? And then you just stop, look at them. I respectfully disagree. And you can take your moment and step back. No, they're not going to like it, but it will be very healing and helpful for you. So that's phrase number one. So number two, I understand that's how you feel. It acknowledges their feelings without validating their unjust accusations. You don't want to have to deal with their false accusations. And that's something that I know you have to deal with all the time. And if you are dealing with that, I've got a free Crush My Negotiation Prep worksheet, which you can get at winmynegotiation.com. Definitely grab that because it will help you. I've had lots and lots of people get it. I understand that's how you feel. That's a really good one too. Number three is no thank you. I mean, simple yet powerful. This phrase sets a very clear boundary. Do they like boundaries? No, but it helps you. These again are helping you reclaim your voice. That's what this is about, right? Your voice. Number four, I need to think about that. Again, you get to take a pause. Hit that pause button. Use this when a narcissist demands a quick decision to pressure you, Don't allow yourself to be pressured. Don't allow yourself to be in a situation where you have to be pressured into feeling like you have to do something, especially when they're getting ready to ask you to sign something. Never sign something without knowing what you're going to sign, without knowing what you're going to do. I've seen it over and over and over again, especially as a lawyer. No, thank you. Or I need to think about that. Both of those phrases together are very, very good. Just put no, thank you. I want you to put that in the comments right now. No, thank you. Number 5 is that doesn't work for me. And it's actually kind of a soft one. That doesn't work for me. Asserts your needs while the narcissist is proposing their agenda on you, right? Have them stop putting that agenda over your head, especially things that aren't reasonable, which is, kind of like a lot all the time, right? I need to think about this. It doesn't work for me. All these are helping you assert your voice. And if you need support, join my free private Facebook group. It'll be very helpful for you. Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. Good stuff. Next one. Ooh, this is a good one. This is a good one. Let's stick to the facts. What do? They go all over the place. They're all over the place. They're back in 1984 half the time or whatever it is that they do, and they're gaslighting you. And you know what? Let's stick to the facts. It redirects that conversation into where you are now instead of veering off into manipulation land, gaslighting land. Let's stick to the facts. And if they don't want to, you don't have to. You don't have to have this conversation right now because you know what? You can go right into phrase number 7, which is, I don't play this game. I don't play this game. Use this to shut down the manipulation right away. The trick is when you're delivering these lines, not to allow yourself to be triggered, not to allow yourself to get emotional. That's really, really, really important because you don't want to allow yourself to get pulled in, sucked in, drawn into the emotion of it. Because the more you can remain calm, the better you're going to be as far as being able to deliver all of this in a way that's not being drawn into the mud. Because if they bait you and go fishing and you're drawn into the mud, now they have you. Now they have you. I don't play this game. Just deliver it. Next one is number 8. We're almost halfway there. Number 8 is I'm not comfortable with that. And I have seen situations as a lawyer, and you guys know that I've been recognized by US News as one of the best lawyers in America. I've done trials, I've done mediations, thousands of them. I've seen a lot of situations where people have been asked to do things that aren't comfortable for them. If you have been asked to do things that you're not comfortable with, and I'm not just talking about signing agreements here. I mean, I've seen people who've been asked to do sexual things that they're not comfortable with, or social situations, all sorts of things that they're not comfortable with. You can set your boundaries. What's negotiable are contracts, issues, and terms. What's not negotiable is your self-worth, your self-respect, your self-esteem, who you are. I'm not comfortable with that is a very polite way of setting boundaries. And you cannot have leaky boundaries around who you are. That's how you got drawn into this in the first place. When you start to say things like, well, I just want to be nice. I don't want to be the bad person. That allows you to get drawn into doing things that are against your gut. I'm not comfortable with that is fine. It's a good thing to say. It's okay. You're allowed to be who you are. Give yourself permission to be who you are. Number 9 is this conversation is over. You are allowed to get up, stand up, walk away, and feel your sense of self-respect. Give yourself permission. It's essential for when a narcissist is being abusive, demeaning, judgmental, condescending, disrespectful. Give yourself permission. That's phrase number 9. Phrase number 10 is I'm choosing not to respond. And you're allowed to say that too. Give yourself permission to not respond. Great for deflecting baiting attempts. You can say things like that, right? That's your perspective. That's another one. Phrase number 11. That's your perspective. That's the way you think. It's not the way I think. I used to say that other lawyers, that sort of thing, even in situations like that, that's your perspective, not mine. It acknowledges their viewpoint without having to agree with them. It's like you're observing it. The next one is, I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, I've been in social situations where people have said things that are just flat out wrong. That's fine. You don't have to agree with people. Once you get old enough, you start to realize, you know what? People can just say whatever comes out of their mouth, and who cares? What difference does it make? It just doesn't matter. They can say, think, or do whatever they want. It really doesn't matter. I'm not going to argue with you. Don't escalate situations. It just stops escalating situations in their tracks. So that's number 12. Number 13 is another, one that's sort of similar. And they hate this too. You know why? Because they want that supply. They're baiting, they're fishing, they're trying to get you into it. Come on. And you're going, no, not doing it. So phrase number 13 is, I won't participate in this. I'm not going to participate in this conversation. And especially when the conversation turns toxic, but they want you to so bad. So phrase number 14 is another one that's similar. That's an interesting opinion. It's an interesting perspective is another way to say that. Very neutral, very non-committal. It doesn't give them the reaction. They want reaction. They want supply. That's why they won't give you up a lot of times. They moved on sometimes to other supply, and you're like, why won't they leave me alone? Because they're looking for supply from you. That's why when you go to create your strategy, my SLAY method, strategy, leverage, anticipate in you, you've got to figure out a source of supply, that diamond level supply, that's more important for them to protect and defend than the supply that they get from jerking you around, and then threaten that source of supply. And that's what I teach you how to do in the SLAY method. Next is number 15. We made it here. We made it all the way to number 15. Do you know what it is? It's let's agree to disagree. Or another way I say it is, I agree with you. I used to say to opposing counsel, we can disagree without being disagreeable. It's a way to end a circular argument. If one person is fully entrenched and another person is too, you're going to be parallel forever. You're never going to get anywhere. It seems like every celebrity has access to GLP-1s these days, but what about the rest of us? Now you don't need to be rich or famous to access personalized, tailored weight loss solutions just for you. Through Hers, you can take control of your health. Hers is changing women's healthcare by providing access to holistic weight loss solutions, including GLP-1 treatments with the same active ingredients as Ozempic and Wegovy, oral medication kits, and more. You'll connect with a medical provider who will develop a plan based on your needs. And if prescribed, your medication is included as part of a doctor-designed weight loss program, complete with ongoing care, online support, all at no additional cost. Plans start at just $199 a month with a 12-month subscription, paid up front, and your treatment ships directly to your door. So if you've been struggling with weight loss and you want to find the right solution just for you, start your free online visit today at forhers.com/negotiate. That's forhers.com/negotiate for your personalized weight loss treatment options. Hers is not available everywhere. Compounded programs are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required, restrictions apply. Wegovy and Ozempic are not compounded. What can you say to a narcissist to shut them down permanently? You have to understand something about narcissists in order to understand how to do this. Here's the myth. Most people think that narcissists just want to win. That myth is totally false. Many people come to me and they say, oh, they just want to win. Or maybe people think they just want money, or they want, those kinds of things. All of that is wrong. What narcissists want is narcissistic supply. Supply is anything that feeds their ego. But here's the thing, there are a couple of different levels of narcissistic supply. So there's what I refer to as diamond level supply, which is how they look to the world. It is the thing that they will protect and defend at any cost. And it can be compliments, adulation. It can also be, that prestige factor, things like that. But really, that's like the premium level of supply. But then there's that dark underbelly of narcissistic supply as well, which is denigrating you, controlling you, manipulating you, making you squirm, that sort of thing as well. And that's the thing that most people don't understand. That's the thing that most people forget about when it comes to narcissistic supply. The thing is that you have to know that that is there also. And so to shut them down permanently, you have to know that if you give them any level of anything, that you're still giving them supply. Any level of anything gives them supply. If you look their direction, it gives them supply. If you breathe their direction, it gives them supply. If you give them attention of any sort, it gives them supply. If you tell them to go F themselves, it gives them supply. If you are talking to their flying monkeys, it gives them supply. If you are locked in a battle with them, it gives them supply. If you defend yourself, it gives them supply. If you take their bait, it gives them supply. All of it, as long as you're still in that web with them, they're giving them supply. You're giving them supply. So you have to understand that mentality with them. And if you don't understand that mentality, then you're never going to understand how to shut them down permanently. You literally have to think of it as like this tourniquet and cutting off that blood source, cutting off, that limb. Because if you don't understand that, then you will continuously give them some kind of oxygen, some kind of food, some kind of lifeblood. And anything you give them will give them a reason to keep coming back. And that's why, even months later, years later, sometimes you'll see that ping in your inbox, that message that pops up. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? You see, sometimes they put in their Instagram bio a Spotify playlist that that there's a reference to you, because they want to see if they're going to get a rise out of you, if they're going to get some kind of attention, because they want to see, are you coming back? If you want to shut them down permanently, you have to understand that mentality. So short responses, the shortest you can go. Boundaries. You got to start off with boundaries. Boundaries like you've never seen before. I always say, step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. Starting off with boundaries, where you are absolutely drawing a line in the sand. Remember, they started off with that love bombing where they were conditioning you, and you've got to start conditioning them back and letting them know that there's a new game in town. What's going to happen when you start doing that? They're going to not like it, of course. They're like toddlers that are having a tantrum. They're going to start acting out. They're going to start getting louder, getting long, kicking more, screaming more. Pay attention, pay attention. What happens with toddlers who have tantrums? They think that they're going to get more attention. They think it's, the worse they get, you're going to give in. And sometimes people do. But if you don't, then they're always the worst right before they give up. So you've got to cut it off. Short responses, zero emotion. I always tell people, pretend like you're reporting the news. Never explain, justify, or overshare. Just the facts. Look at it as if you are observing the situation. Oh, hello. I'm now seeing you that you are talking to me. Obviously you don't hold a microphone, but you kind of like pretend like you are. You're just observing the situation. Never defend yourself. When you defend yourself, you're actually giving the other person credence. You're actually giving life to their ridiculous arguments. You don't need to defend yourself. When they send long emails, long texts, look for the one thing that you need to respond to and just respond to that. And as to the rest of it, you can say, I deny what is in this email, everything that you just said. And I am responding to the one thing that I need to respond to, which is that, our child can be picked up on Wednesday at 4:00. And that's it. That's all you need to do. As far as, responding, you don't need to respond right away most of the time. You can take your time responding a lot of times, or you can take a breath before you even need to respond. Sometimes, even if you're standing in the same room, take a breath, take a pause. Sometimes you can just be silent for a moment or completely. Sometimes you don't even need to respond at all. Sometimes the things that they are saying are just so ridiculous that you don't even need to respond at all. Sometimes silence will just absolutely drive them crazy. And then they start to become unglued, which will beget something that they say, which will maybe become a great resource for you down the road, a great potential trial exhibit even. Okay. When you send them over an offer and then they don't respond to your offer, do not say, oh, I'm going to send you over another offer. Don't negotiate against yourself. Let them counter. You can let them know this is the offer on the table. That's it. Don't allow them to push you into anything offline, by the way. Don't say, oh, we're meeting at Starbucks and, we're going to do this at the beginning of the deal, and let them bully you into agreements, sign things off on pieces of paper. And you're not going to do that sort of thing. Okay. Don't do that. A lot of times you can just respond with very brief things. You can just say, sure. Sure, I understand that's what you think. I agree that's what you think. I mean, I agree that's what you think. It's such a perfect response. I love that response. They hear I agree, and then you've agreed to nothing. I agree that that's your opinion. I agree you think that. I agree that that's where we are at this point. That's a perfect response. Or you can just say, sure. Okay. That's wonderful for you. I understand that that's what you think. I hear you. A lot of times you can just say, I hear you. I hear you is just doesn't say really much of anything, but then they feel heard. It's great. Just a lot of times you can just think of who your avatar would be, the strongest, most powerful person, the elite version of yourself, and show up as that person. You can, fake it till you make it. Okay. And just be that person, especially when you are needing to feel confident at that time. Just show up, be that person. Be confident because you are so ready. You're so ready, because I'm telling you, narcissists are way more afraid of you than you are of them. And the more together you are, the more unglued they become. They bank on you being the emotional one. So they want to pick at you. They want to get under your skin so that you become the emotional one and they sit there looking calm. So the more you cannot take that bait, the better it's going to be for you, because they will push the ante more and more and more. And the more you don't take it, the higher and higher and higher they're going to try to go. And you will see how it will actually become worse and worse and worse for them. All right. Communicate to them that there's a new game in town and they will become more and more unglued. It will happen. The more you don't take that bait, the calmer you are. And hey, if you have to just be brief in your interactions with them, then that's what you have to do. But in your brief interactions with them, you do not let them see you sweat. Do not let them see you sweat. You just observe. You're as brief as possible. You are as strong as possible because they will respect that. They will be intimidated by that. And if you, when you go away from them, have to, that's when you scream into your pillow and, vomit in the shower or whatever it is that you do, fine. But when you're in that moment, when you're with them, you are as strong and confident as possible. Right? So finding conflict during high conflict situations, especially when you're dealing with challenging individuals, is really, really crucial for effective negotiation. And especially even if you're just communicating with somebody and maintaining that sense of self, especially when you're trying to keep your credibility. So here are some strategies to really build and sustain confidence in these scenarios. First of all, make sure that you are over prepared. When I was dealing with trial, I would be over prepared. That is one of the keys to having confidence before entering that high conflict situation. If you can, you can't always do this. I mean, you don't always know when you're going to be in a high conflict situation, but if you do know that you're going to be in a situation, thoroughly prepare. Understand the key issues, understand what their positions are going to be. Know your position, but know their position too. I have a free Crush My Negotiation Prep worksheet that is 15 pages. You can get it at winmynegotiation.com. I teach you how to do that. Your side, their side as well. Anticipate potential challenges, plan your responses. This preparation will help you build your confidence and make sure that you feel in control and help you feel equipped to handle the conversation. Okay. The next thing is stay centered and calm. High conflict situations can be very emotionally challenging, very emotionally charged. That's why I want you to make sure you are fully prepared ahead of time. I always have people go through all of their risks ahead of time. What's your worst case scenario? What's your best case scenario? What's your choke point? Some people call it, some of my clients in the past have called it their vomit point, whatever you want to call it. I have people do it ahead of time because the day of can be very emotionally charged. So practice feeling calm and centered ahead of time. Techniques such as deep breathing, mindfulness, positive affirmations. In my high conflict certification training, we do certain types of breathing. I teach you how to breathe so that you can maintain that composed demeanor, which in turn boosts confidence. When we're really, really stressed, we breathe very, very shallowly, and that does not oxygenate your cells. I always say oxygenate to dominate. Assertive communication is the next one. Use clear and direct assertive communication to express your thoughts. I mean, you say it respectfully, but practice using I statements instead of you statements, so you're not sounding aggressive, but you say I statements. And I would stay away from things like saying, I will try to, or, if you want to. Don't say things like that. You say, this is what I want. This is how it can be handled. You want to sound assertive. You want to make sure that you sound assertive without sounding aggressive, but make sure that you are sounding like you know what you want. You don't want to be passive. Assertive communication is key in high conflict situations because you want the person to respect you, especially when you're dealing with difficult personalities, because they will roll over you. They will not respect you. If you give them an inch, they will take that. So here are some examples of assertive communication. So I'm going to give you examples. I understand your point, but I see things differently. Here's my perspective. Very, very assertive, but respectful. I understand your point, but I see things differently. Here's my perspective. This phrase acknowledges their side, but you're stating your point confidently before stating your own. It's respectful, but clear. You're getting ready to express a differing opinion. Here's another one. I appreciate your input, and you can say it nicely. You can even say it with a little bit of a smile. I appreciate your input, and don't say it sarcastically. Be very careful not to say things sarcastically or in an emotionally charged way. I appreciate your input, but I have to set a boundary here. I must set a boundary regarding, and then you can state whatever it is that you're setting a boundary about. Setting boundaries is a crucial part of assertive communication. This phrase does so respectfully, and it does so indicating your limits while acknowledging the other person's contribution. The next one is I feel blank, whatever the situation is. I feel hurt or I feel uncomfortable when that is discussed. I'd prefer if we could blank. Using I feel statements is a classic assertive technique. I feel disrespected when that is whatever. And honestly, you can say this after you give the person credit for something. Oh, thank you for what you've done for me for this. I appreciate it. It expresses your feelings without blaming the other person. And it suggests a preferred solution. I'd prefer if we could blank. So that's the next one. Another one is I need to have my concerns addressed as well. Let's find a way to ensure both of our needs are met. This phrase emphasizes the importance of their needs while remaining open to collaborative solutions. So it's both assertive and cooperative at the same time. So another one that I really like is you can just straight up say, I disagree, and here's why. But you can just say it in a way that is completely respectful. One of the things I used to say a lot to opposing counsel is we can disagree without being disagreeable. I used to say sometimes if we can't agree on this particular issue, we can just take it to trial and that's fine. In other words, for me as a lawyer, I would just express to the opposing counsel, let's not be personal about this. If we need to take this to trial, that's fine, but I'm not going to start throwing barbs and make it personal. Obviously, that's not, you can do in certain situations, right? But you can just say, I disagree with what you said, and here's why. And then follow up with clear, rational reasoned arguments for why you want to strengthen your position. Always be as specific as you can. Well, don't say, well, you always do this and you always do that. When you use always and nevers, that's when the person goes, always, I always do this. I never do that. That's when you've lost credibility because then they go to that. Okay. So you want to be really, really specific in your argument. The more specific that you can be, the more credibility you will have. The next one you might want to do is something like, I value our relationship. And that's why it's important for me to express this. If you say that, then it's extremely persuasive. Really value our working relationship. I really value working here. I really value you as a boss. I really value you as a client. I really value our relationship, you as a spouse. I really value you as a whatever. And that's why it's important for me to express how I truly feel about this. Expressing the value you place on a relationship sets a positive tone, and it justifies the need for honest communication and open communication. And I respect you way too much not to say this. You are so good at blah, blah, blah. And that's why I want to hold us to a higher standard, acknowledging that the need to be at a higher standard. You're expressing your position clearly and confidently. You're not being aggressive, but you're not being passive either. You're being assertive. It demonstrates your respect for the other party. It demonstrates that you think highly of them. It's focusing on empowerment. It's focusing on integrity. It's focusing on effective communication. Remember to always focus on facts. Focus on facts. Come back to facts, but come back to what is so. Don't allow for getting personal. High conflict individuals are always going to go to getting personal. Get back to focusing on facts. That's how they use emotional manipulation, by the way. Get back to logic. Well, I hear what you're saying, but let's get back to the facts. Let's get back to how we can get back to what the issues are. Stay to your boundaries. Stick to your boundaries. What's negotiable? Contracts, issues, terms, what's not negotiable? Your self-respect, your self-esteem, who you are as a person. All right. Be very clear about those boundaries. Stick to them. Never, ever, ever allow the person to come at you. Don't allow them to escalate that situation. Listen actively. Do your fluff or favor vomit later thing. Stick with a confident response. Okay, well, how can we move this forward? What would be an ideal outcome for you? Seek support when you need to. You can't be isolated in this. I'll admit it, I'm that person. I'm the one the night before a birthday, an anniversary, or any kind of special occasion, I'm frantically searching the aisles for the right card and one that doesn't seem kind of corny or cringeworthy. You know the struggle, right? But then I found Moonpig. It's a total game changer. They have tons of adorable, funny, even heartfelt designs ready to go, and you can even personalize them, which is super cool. You can even upload your favorite photos or tweak the text to make it uniquely you. And they'll even suggest clever messages if you're feeling stuck. Oh, and no more forgetting birthdays or scrambling for addresses. Moonpig lets you save everything in one place and even sends you reminders. Plus, they've got the opportunity to upload gift cards from all your favorite places like Sephora or Starbucks, so you can really nail that perfect gift vibe. Once you've designed your card, they'll even mail it for you, or if you want to hand deliver it, they'll send it to you with a cool envelope. So guess what? This is your chance. Your first card is totally free. Just use the code FREE and go to moonpig.com/US/negotiate. Seriously, stop stressing and start impressing. Make someone's day with Moonpig. Try it right now.
Let's talk about that first verbal psychological trick to make an aggressive person sorry. Well, the first thing that you have to do is stop defending yourself. All right. You don't defend. Never come back with defending yourself. If you start pushing back right away, they're going to push back. You're going to push back, and nobody is going to get anywhere. I would say never jade. I would say I love jade because, I'm half Chinese. So, but never jade, never justify, argue, defend, or explain. Because when you do that, you're just going to raise the temperature even more. And by the way, you're never going to convince them. You're never going to get them to go, oh, you know what? I see that now. I see your side. I didn't think of it that way. Especially if you're dealing with a narcissistic person, a high conflict person, they want to be right. It's all about them being right. If that's the type of person that you're dealing with, you got to just pull back. You got to pull back. You got to let go of the reins. You got to let go. If you're playing tug of war, right? You got to let go of that, because then somebody's like easing the tension there. So if you just let go and just let them be, then somebody is letting go of the reins and never justify, never argue, defend, or explain. So the first thing you got to do is never justify, argue, defend, or explain. Stop, okay? And let go. Really, the second thing is to let go. Just let go and let them be like that. Let them be like that. Because you are going to have a strategy here that is going to be much, much more powerful. I call it ethically manipulating the manipulator here. You're going to come back from a much, much more powerful place, a much more strategic place, a much more tactical place. You don't want to be pushing back against them, because you do that, you get nowhere. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to actively listen. I want you to actively listen. And while you're actively listening, I want you to be validating them. I want you to be validating them. You're going to be saying things. I call it fluff for favor, vomit later in a lot of ways, but you're going to be actively listening, and you're going to be saying things like, oh, I hear you. I understand. I see what you're saying. I get that, and it must be hard for you. But you're going to be looking at them almost as if they're a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. When a toddler's having a tantrum on the floor, you don't go, oh my God, let me get on the floor with them and let me scream and have a tantrum along with them. You look at them and you're kind of like, oh, are you done yet? And always maintain your own level of respect. If they're not respecting you, you're out the door. But as long as they're respecting you, then you can stay in the room, and you're just looking at them, and your tone is even. Your tone is calm. And in some ways, you even want to like lower your voice. The lower your voice, the better it is. The calmer you are, the better it is. And by the way, while you're active listening, while you're giving them validation, make sure that you're always respectful too. That means no dirty fighting, no nothing like that. No cussing, no bad words, no name calling. You're maintaining your level of respect too, because as soon as you start getting into the trenches with them, now they're seizing on that. Oh, you called me the name. You said this, you said that. Now it's going to be all about that thing. So active listening, validation, respectful, calm. You don't go back. You don't push back. You let go. Active listening, validation. Now, the next thing I want you to do is use words like I feel, I feel, I feel hurt. I feel disrespected. You don't use words like you, because if you use words like you do this, you do that, they will be triggered. When you do that, they will be triggered. So you frame it in terms of I. And when you do that, they will be starting to listen to you more. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to start with areas of agreement and then work toward those areas where there might be more conflict, more areas of disagreement. So psychologically, now you're starting to have momentum. Well, I know that we can agree that we both want the best for our children. I know that we can agree that we both want whatever it is. Whatever it is that you can find common ground on, then that's where you start. I know that we can both agree that we both should have respect for each other. Whatever it is that you can come up with, that there should be something that's an agreement on. Because the more that you can have an agreement with each other, and the more that you can have non-defensive communication, the more that you will lull that other person into believing that there's non-defensive communication, that you're in agreement on things, that you're now starting to have momentum on agreement on things. And now, hey, why lose the work that you've already done? Why get rid of that momentum? We're actually getting somewhere here. we're actually covering some ground. So let's not throw all of this away so far. Let's continue to work toward resolution since we've already gotten this far. And so now you've gotten this harmonious environment going. And as long as you don't stay triggered, you have to stay low to the ground. Don't allow yourself to be triggered. Even if they say something that's triggering to you, even if they say, you know that you're the one who always does blah, blah, blah. You're the one who's always late. You're the one who never does blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is that they try to barb you with or whatever, just let it go by. Let it go by you. Don't allow yourself to be pulled in, sucked in, brought in, because if you do, then you're going to be right back where you started again. Is this making sense? Give me a yes in the comments if this is making sense so far. It's not an easy thing to do, okay? And that's why I have free phrases for disarming narcissists, which I definitely highly recommend that you get at disarmthenarc.com. Make sure you grab those because you will need them. You will need them for emails, for your text messages, for your communication in general. Make sure you grab those. They are totally free. And join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung, for additional support as well. When you're faced with hostility, when you're faced with isolation, when you're faced with somebody who's trying to gaslight you and make you think you're crazy, you do want a community of support. You do want a community of people who are surrounding you, bathing you with light, bathing you with love, who are telling you that you're okay, that you are actually the one who's not the crazy one. You want to be surrounding yourself with people who can help you. Make sure the last thing is that you're working toward a constructive solution. Let them know we're working toward a constructive solution. Let's continue to work toward a constructive solution that's going to be good for everybody involved. Whether or not you believe that or whether or not they believe that, use words like that. Use words that will allow them to believe, hear, and see that, oh, we want to work cooperatively, constructive solution that's working about positive working relationship or positive relationship that's good for the children or whatever it is that, the buzzwords that they want to hear so that it makes it seem like everybody's on the same page. Those are the verbal psychological tricks that calm aggressive people down. And if they say things that are like trying to make you angry, instead of responding with anger, respond with curiosity. See, oh, that's interesting. Why would you say that? Oh, that's interesting. Why would you do that? Don't fight back like that.
All right, 8 ways to outsmart that controlling narcissist. By the way, I have a brand new book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with Narcissists and Win. It is literally in pre-order right now. I have tons of free bonuses for you. Go to slaythebully.com, grab it. All right, number 1, what's the one thing they want you to do? What's the one thing they want you to do? They want you to take their bait. Why do they want you to do that? Well, because they go fishing. Boom. Reel you in. So don't take their bait, okay? Do not take their bait. Why do they want you to take their bait? Because then they feed their ego. They feed that need inside of them for supply. So remember, they don't feel inside like they have any value. They literally have to get all of their value from external sources. So yes, it's how they look to the world. Yes, it's ego. Yes, it's winning. Yes, it's adulation. Yes, it's all of those things. But it's also by controlling people, debasing people, degrading people, manipulating people. That's also a form of supply for them. So when you take their bait, when they throw things out there to try to trigger you, that gives them a high. It literally, they get off on that. So when they send you these long emails, these long texts, these long things, or something through their attorney, or something that they know that is going to trigger you, and you go right in with them, they've really got exactly what they want. And then now you're sucked into the mud, you're sucked into the quicksand with them. But it's even worse than that, because not only are you giving them narcissistic supply, number one, you're giving them what they want, but number two, they use your emotional reaction against you. So if you are in any kind of a situation where either you are in a potential court case or negotiations of any sort, or you could be down the road ever, they will use it against you. Okay. They will say, look, there's the crazy one. They sit over there, calm, cool, collected. Not one bead of sweat has ever touched their brow. And you look like the crazy person. And they use your reactions against you. One of the greatest examples of this is in the mini series I Care a Lot. I did a whole video on this, where the woman who was the caregiver of these elderly people went up to the other woman, the elderly woman, and whispered in her ear while the camera was playing. She would get these elderly people to become like her wards, right? So if she was their guardian, then she would get control of their money, and she would basically take their money, right? And so she would get them in front of the judge and have them declared incompetent. She would put them into these nursing home facilities, and she would get control of their money. So when there was a hearing coming up for this woman's capacity in front of this camera, she whispered in front of the camera all sorts of things to get her upset. I'm going to do this, you're this, all sorts of things, whispering quietly. And the woman went nuts in front of the camera and looked like crazy person, insane person who basically needed a straitjacket, needed to be restrained. The other woman, the caregiver person, was like, oh my gosh, look at that. Wow. Ugh, it's terrible. This crazy old elderly person who is obviously doesn't have her capacity. So she literally took her bait, hook, line, and sinker. And that's what happens with narcissists. So, and I did a video on that, which you can check out if you'd like, but that's what they do. And it doesn't have to be in that kind of situation. They can say, you're a deadbeat dad or a horrible mother, and you can sit there and say, what are you talking about? I just picked them up from school, I just fed them their snacks, I just took them to baseball, or whatever. Are you kidding me? I just paid child support, whatever it is. And then you're down into it and you're in the thick of it and you're in it. Don't take that bait, because you don't need to prove anything to them. They are not the judge. They are not the jury. Okay. They are not the person you need to prove anything to. So who cares what they say? Don't take their bait. That's number one. Number two, don't engage in conversation with them or in any conversations that are emotional or argumentative, or in any conversations about the past. This is another way to not take the bait, but really to outsmart that controlling narcissist. Because again, they're going to try to drag you into these things, but don't talk about the past, because that's something else that they're going to do. They're going to get you to talk about something that happened 20 years ago, if they can, especially if you're trying to call them onto the carpet about something that happened now. If you are going to get them to be held responsible for something today, they will definitely try to project and deflect about anything else because they don't want to be held responsible for something that's going on now. So they're going to try to do anything they can to get that conversation off of that. So don't engage in that. Don't start getting argumentative. Don't get emotional. By the way, I have phrases for disarming narcissists, which you can download. It's totally free. Go to disarmthenarc.com. Highly recommend that you grab that. Disarmthenarc.com. Don't engage, don't get emotional, don't get argumentative with them. Total waste of time. You're not going to convince them of anything. They're not going to go, oh, you know what? I get it now. I see what you're saying. Oh, yes. Now, you know what? I was wrong. They're not doing that. So what are you doing? Just stop. Stop yourself. All right. Set boundaries. Stick to them. That's the next one. Set boundaries, stick to them. You know what I say? Step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. Remember what's negotiable: contracts, issues, terms. You know what's not negotiable? Your self-worth, your self-esteem. All right. So step 1, don't run. That's where you're putting your boundaries into place. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. Okay? Avoid confrontation as much as possible. All right. Next one. Don't try to change them. Don't try to fix them. Don't try to change what their beliefs are. Don't try to get them to acknowledge anything you did or anything that, your accomplishments. Any kind of conversation like that is a waste of your time, your energy, your good life on this earth, your breath. All of that creative, wonderful energy that you have is just better spent doing other things on this planet. You can say things to them like, I agree, that's what you think. Or you can say things to them like, that's an interesting perspective. Just say things like that just to keep things flowing. The next one is remember that your self-worth, who you are, has absolutely nothing to do with them. You are whole and complete, and it has absolutely a separate value from who they are. Your self-worth does not depend on what they say, what they do. And the more time that you spend giving them and thinking about what they're doing is less time that you have to create and be the highest version of yourself. So, that was one of the massive, huge aha moments that I had when I was extricating myself from a narcissistic relationship. I realized that every moment that I was giving to this person, I was in victim mode. And so I needed to stop. So, do what you need to do to get out of that relationship, and think about it when you have to, when you're strategizing or creating your leverage or whatever. Remember my SLAY methodology: strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you. So when you're thinking about it, think about it. But any other time, you got to be in create mode. Give yourself the gift of being the highest, best version of yourself. Think about something else that you can pivot to that is going to keep you in creation mode. Is it going to be writing that book that you've always wanted to write? Is it going to be helping people? Is it going to be coaching people? Is it going to be devoting your life to something that you've always wanted to devote your life to? Your children, is whatever it is, you got to pivot into something else, because your self-worth, all of that has nothing to do with them. They are broken people. And so however they've been toward you in the past has nothing to do with you. Okay. The way people treat other people is a direct reflection of the way they feel about themselves, good or bad. they've treated you poorly because they don't feel good about the way they feel about themselves inside. So you can't take it personally. The next one is stay positive, stay upbeat around them. Let them know that you're like Teflon, just let it roll, fly off. Like, or like a duck's back. It just, rolls off of you. Because as long as they think that that's what's happening, then they'll start to be disinterested because you're not taking the bait anymore. You are calm, you're not emotional, you're happy, you're not interested in giving them supply anymore. And the less and less all of that is interacting, then they're going to be very much surprised. So step 1, don't run. Step 2, make that U-turn. Step 3, break free. So you're literally turning this around so that you're no longer backing away. You're no longer on the defensive. You're turning around, you're walking forward. You're now on the offensive, and that's how you start to stand in your power. And that's how you start to break free. So I want you to put in the comments right now, I can do this, because you can do this. You absolutely can. All right. The next one is you maintain your individuality, you maintain your independence. As you start to break free, as you start to become powerful, as you start to become confident, you will start to see yourself as separate. You will start to see yourself as something different, and you will start to see that power coming underneath you. That's when you start to see that wind coming underneath your wings. Be prepared for drama. Be prepared for manipulation, because they won't want to see that supply source coming away from them. Narcissists are always the worst right before they're ready to give up. It's like a toddler having a tantrum. I mean, it's as that baby is being kind of conditioned, they get worse and worse and worse. So be prepared for that drama, trauma, and chaos. But you can do this, right? You put that in the comments already, right? I can do this, because you can. All right. And lastly, get that professional help that you need, right? So you will need help. You will need support. You will need a support system. Make sure you join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. Join that. You will need help. You will need support. You will need a support system. You get professional therapy. If you don't have access to it, we do have a partnership with BetterHelp. You can go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung and get that online support therapy if you need access to that. We receive commissions. It doesn't cost you any extra. We just want you to have the help and support that you need. Make sure you subscribe to this channel as well. We want you to make sure that you have everything that you need. I'm here providing free resources for you every day as an attorney, helping you negotiate with narcissists, helping you communicate with narcissists every single day. Remember that you have a voice. You have a voice. You have a right to have a voice. You have a right to speak your truth.